Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Travel Bug Girls podcast. I'm Kimmie here with Heather, the owner of Travel Bug Girls Agency. And today we are going to be talking about how travel agents add value. I'm so excited to have Heather with us today. I think this is a big topic right now, especially as I'm actually seeing a lot of talk about using AI to plan your travel and stuff like that. And I know in some of our past episodes, we talked about how using a travel agent is actually growing. More travel is being booked through a travel agent. And so I think it would be great to share with our listeners, like, why should people use a travel agent when they can just go online and do it themselves? I know we've all been traveling and had a flight canceled at the last minute or been stuck in a foreign airport, don't know what to do next. Things come up, unexpected things come up when you travel, and that is where a travel agent steps in. So let's start off talking about like the changing landscape of travel. Kind of where are we right now? What's going on in the travel world?
Yeah, technology over the last few decades has made it easier for people to book their own trips, their own flights, their own accommodations, to see a lot more options than we ever could see before or knew existed. So that's a good thing overall. We really, at least as a traveler, I enjoy knowing that I have so much access to so many options. However, it's become overwhelming and time consuming to do even just the research part, which is really just the first part of travel planning. And so what we see is more and more people saying enough, like, I'm tired of always having to do everything myself now. I need help. I don't have time for this. And especially the people we work with tend to be women over the age of 30 who are planners by nature and they want things planned well, but they are the ones planning everything in their lives through work and family and everything else in their community. They're very involved, very busy, and they would love to be able to go on a vacation without having to do all of the planning. They want to be able to show up like everyone else gets to in their life and enjoy it. And so,
actually go and vacation on vacation.
Exactly. Imagine actually getting to relax and know everything's taken care of. And so, that desire to be the passenger princess for once. And that is really who we end up at the Travel Bug Girls anyway. That's who we end up working with the most. But overall, the industry has seen an increase. What's funny is I've heard several people say since I became a travel agent, when I say that to people, a lot of times they're saying, wait, you're a travel agent? I thought those were extinct. I thought we were done with that. But actually it's a growing industry, which is interesting that there's that misconception, because even though tech is making it easier for us to see all those options, like I said, if people are overwhelmed and exhausted. So the other thing that we've seen with that, with the growth of all self-service, right, across the board, and think about going to Walmart now and everybody's having to do self-checkout. That's everywhere. Even I was at a gas station the other day and it was all self-checkout. So everything is going that way, where now you are the employee and you are doing everything on your own. That used to have a lot of support, a lot of service, interaction where you could ask questions and get actual help. And we're missing that in our daily lives. And so the benefit of working with a travel agent, number one to me, is having that one-to-one connection, a real person who is an expert in the industry, who genuinely wants you to have the best time ever. And their success depends on you having a great trip. So that is, I think, something that really speaks to why we're seeing this growth. One of the things I mentioned, I think I mentioned the statistic in a previous episode, that in 2023, there was 70% of long distance travel was booked through a travel agent. And in 2024, they were predicting a 10% increase in that number. So it'll be interesting to see how far that trend continues. How far are we going to go from doing everything ourselves? Now, that's typically long distance travel. So if I'm just going, to the next nearby city or going to visit my sister, a few hours away and she doesn't have room for me, then I might be jumping on, a website and booking a hotel or a short flight or something. But if I'm going abroad, if I'm going on a cruise, if I'm going, to visit a country I haven't been in, if I'm going on a long distance trip or something that's really complicated, like has multiple parts, I'm definitely wanting that extra support and better customer service.
The overwhelming amount of information that is now available to anyone through the internet, you could literally spend as much time researching your trip as you actually are traveling on your trip. Literally, it's overwhelming. And so I think if you just looked at the time saving aspect of it, like
that alone, the average person is value right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to do that work for you, and then I'm going to hand you the best options.
Yeah. So let's talk about how a travel agent has expertise and how they provide personalized service to their clients.
Well, I'd like to start by sharing a couple stories. Like, for example, I know that you recently had a client that I think is a great example of the value that we offer to our clients as travel agents. You booked a baby moon for a client, their special getaway. Tell us about that, because I think that's a great example of how those special touches and insider information really made things special.
Yeah. So I did a baby moon for a couple, and before I started planning, I kind of talked to them and kind of got a feel for what they were interested in, some of their likes and dislikes, what they wanted, because people want different things out of a vacation. Some people want adventure, some people want to relax. And with this being a baby moon, they wanted they're not big crowd people. They wanted built in like downtime and stuff like that. So I was able to kind of tailor their trip to fit that in. So they had maybe one or two activities throughout the day and then built in downtime in between, where if they wanted to do something else, they wanted to kind of explore where they were at, fine. But if they just wanted to go back to their hotel room and rest, that time was built in there. They were kind of a like fun, kind of quirky couple. So one of the things I built into their itinerary was a mustard museum in the area they were in. There was a mustard museum and they absolutely loved it. It was so funny. They texted me from the mustard museum like, this place is awesome. We on our own never would have thought to go here. In fact, where they went was a place they had been before, but they didn't even know that the mustard museum existed. But in my research, I had stumbled upon it.
And weren't they foodies? Like they were interested in food.
Yes, they loved food. So I was able to find them like some really cool, unique food restaurants. They also loved cats. So I found them a cat cafe, which they loved. I think they went to the cat cafe twice, where you go and like drink coffee and there's just cats running around, and they love that. So the fun part about being a travel agent is you get to know the uniqueness of your client, and then you can research and pull in some of those little things that they might not pick up on their own, that they're, even with a simple Google search, they're not going to find, but you can kind of dig in because you're doing that in-depth research to kind of find the unique things in the area. So that was super. It was super fun, and it was great because they would text me from the different places they were at, like, "Oh, this is so cool. We're having a blast." And so that was really fun to get to do that bait for them.
It's my favorite part of the job too. And now we are a concierge level agency, so we sometimes do a little more of that outside of the box kind of work than what other agencies do, and that's not right or wrong, right? It's just a matter of preference for the client, who they might rather work with. But for us, we love that. We love working with our clients and making sure that they have, those special dinner reservations or spa appointments, or like it's their birthday, let's do something extra, And so being able to really fit in what they want in particular, like above and beyond, is just, it really makes the trip, right? And those are things that usually we're having to do for ourselves, or we don't have it all, like in the example that you gave where they didn't even know that museum was there,
Right.
or how fabulous it could be.
I forgot to, I booked a sightseeing cruise for them. And so I emailed the company and let them know that they were on their baby moon. So like while they were on the sightseeing cruise, they made a little announcement and like congratulated them for being on their baby moon. So like those little fun, small little things that you get to do for your clients to just make it extra special for them, like you were saying, a birthday or whatever, like that's what makes it.
It's the best. It's the best. It's so much fun. And you really get to know these people. Like when we're working with our clients, we're often starting with somebody we don't know, never met them before. And then by the time we're in the research mode, like just even that first step of research, we already know insider information about all the people on the trip. If it's a family, that I know the ages of the children, their names, what their favorite things are. My son's interested in this, but my daughter likes that. And this is where they never agree, but they both went their way on their trip, And so you get to know the people at a different level. And by the time we're done, by the time, the trip is planned and paid for and all of this, we're best friends. Like, I mean, these people have become a part of my life now, and I can't wait to hear out how it goes. And did they have a great time? And how was the birthday or the Christmas or whatever the thing was, and it's special. It's special. And so that's, I think, too, why we end up with a lot of repeat customers is because now you're connected at an emotional level, and you're not going to have to explain those things again, because now this person gets you and they know how you like to travel. And it is true that people travel in different ways. And so it's really helpful when you can understand that at a deep level and have some good experience with that about how that really looks. Because sometimes I'm finding that clients don't always know that about themselves.
Yeah.
And when I can ask the right questions, I can get that out of you. Like, how much relaxation do you want versus go, see, do. And sometimes people don't really know that well enough to articulate it, but I can sense it often based on our conversation. So another thing that travel agents offer is industry knowledge, insider information. We know when the sales are coming sometimes beforehand because we know that there's patterns, there's routines here. And so, like we're entering a season called wave season. I didn't know wave season existed before I was a travel agent, but it was already there. It wasn't something that was new when I became a travel agent. It's just I didn't know about it because nobody uses those words in the outside world. But travel agents know, hey, this is what's coming up. So everybody get ready. You're about to sell a lot of cruises.
Yeah.
Right? All those beach resorts for the summer, they're all about to be booked. So everybody get ready. And so, there's a lot of information we get beforehand. Another thing that, if we had some of our other agents on right now, they would, I know that Tina would want to talk about the difference in resorts. Kimmie, you've seen this too. In resorts, like you can have one destination like Cancun. Okay. It's pretty cut and dry. It's the beach, a lot of beach resorts, right? Mostly. And then there's some tours that you might do into the interior, but it's basically beach vacations, right? However, there are so many resorts.
Yes.
In the Cancun region, and they're expanding all the time, and they're changing hands all the time and renovating, right? And they each have, it turns out, different vibes entirely. And so a person says, I want to go to Mexico and go to the beach, and I saw so-and-so on Instagram and they went to Cancun and it looked amazing. And if they don't have an idea of exactly what resort they want, then you as the professional can help them to have a better vacation simply by asking some questions and knowing the insider information about resorts. Because otherwise, the average person, like if I, as a regular person before I became a travel agent, was going to book a family vacation to Mexico, I'm probably just looking at the best price, right? Who has the room size I need at the price I want?
Right.
And do they look generally like they have good reviews? It is so easy to end up like, I want to go on this relaxing vacation where I can go to the spa and I can sit around and do nothing. And it's calm and quiet and peaceful and relaxing because my life is stressful. successful and end up at a party resort.
Right.
Or a resort that's full of children running and playing and everything's children oriented. Those things are really important. If you had children, if Cassie wanted to take her family versus me taking my family with adult children, we probably want different resorts.
Right.
Even if we have the same price point.
And one thing I've learned is not all beach resorts have the same kind of beach.
Right.
Beachfront does not mean the same thing
That's
at every
right.
resort. So
Some have a lot of money to put into like maintaining their beaches and keeping them clean and adding extra sand and all of that kind of stuff. And other companies don't have that money. And so it ends up like covered in seaweed, which is just a natural process. But when you show up and you only have 1 week to be there and the entire beach is covered in rotting seaweed and, 2 resorts down, they have a pristine beach, but you're not allowed on it because it belongs to that resort. That's
not the same experience.
Exactly. And that's the kind of insider information that agents develop working in this industry. I'm both in our training and in our own personal behind the scenes chat group and experiences. We go on trips, we take notes, we learn, we ask each other, and we gain an understanding that's far beyond what the average person is going to have, and definitely far beyond what is advertised to you, because everybody is going to take a picture of their beach on the best day ever, right? When it's been prepped for that photo, right? And having an understanding of what you're really getting into can happen easily.
Yeah. Let's talk about how we save time for our clients and reduce stress.
This is probably the biggest selling point to our personal clients, reducing their stress and reducing the amount of time they're having to spend planning. The average trip planning can be 6 hours to 12 hours. So now we have ways of doing that faster because we have a lot of systems, routines, and insider information that makes it so that we aren't necessarily spending 12 hours every time that we're planning a trip, or even 6 hours. But for the average person who's not a travel agent, it's a lot of lost time before you even have the benefit of knowing where you're going exactly and having that down payment. So we save them time by doing that research for them. And then we provide customized itineraries. So based on all that information we've gathered from our clients about exactly what kind of vacation they want, and then our insider information from the industry, we create itineraries that are really super customized for exactly what they're looking for. So this comes up a lot more for me than the rest of my team, maybe because Europe is not like going to a all-inclusive resort where you just choose your resort and then you're done.
Yeah.
So a lot of my clients are seeing multiple cities, often multiple countries in one trip, and staying at multiple hotels. They're going on different tours or, activities. They want to know what restaurants to go to, where the best shopping is, or whatever the things are they're interested in, maybe wine tastings, things like that. So I'm having to do a whole lot of research in multiple locations and then pulling it together for them. So I'm saving them days worth of research. So I recently booked a trip to Greece for a client, a group of people that were going to Greece, and they traveled together to Europe before, and they talked about having spent a month doing research and planning, and then they had to hold a weekend summit.
Oh my.
The group got together for the weekend and argued over all the things they had found and discovered to try to narrow it down to what actually made sense for them in their time and money, right?
Oh, that sounds so stressful.
Can you imagine? And it's like your best friends, and all you wanted was to go on this great vacation together, and now it's become like a battle.
And now you all hate each other and you haven't even gone on the trip.
And you haven't even put money down on anything yet, right? So I think it was really interesting for me to step into that dynamic and say, okay, well, let me see if I can do it differently for you. And then I hosted a Zoom meeting where I'm like, okay, guys, here's your options. That battle went from a weekend to a 20-minute conversation. And then they were like, okay, this is what we want to do,
Yeah.
And
awesome.
So, they still had to have that conversation, but that, they're like, wow, we did that over Zoom. I can go back with our, I have work. Like, let's get back to it. And then they get to show up and experience it. And nobody is feeling like we spent 6 months planning this, right? Like, They put the money down. The end. Now they get to show up and enjoy it. And so it changes the entire dynamic of that process and makes it so that they're so much more relaxed. And then when they show up and something goes wrong, because let's just talk about reality, right? No matter how perfectly we plan something, things can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things. And we are definitely going to end up doing a podcast about like why you should have travel insurance.
Yeah.
The things
When
that
things go wrong.
Yeah. But what happens is when something doesn't go the way you thought it would, you have an actual real person, number one, to talk to.
Yeah. Yes.
And often more than one, because I'm going to send my clients with a list of, okay, if this happens, call this number first and then let me know. If this happens, call this number first and then let me know, right? Because I'm going to make sure you have the exact right people to talk to in the moment to get you the best help possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure you have a team of people behind you to have the support you need if your hotel isn't what it said it was, or you have a medical emergency, or you have a theft. This happens a lot to people, right? Basic things that could happen to us in our own hometown can happen to you when you're on vacation, and it can really disrupt things. And now you're out of place where you don't know who to call. How do I call 911 when I'm in Greece? Like, is that the same thing? Do they even have that kind of service, And so having a travel agent can make sure that you have the information you need and the support you need for when things go wrong. So if you're having to cancel your hotel all of a sudden because your plans changed on the fly, because things started to domino effect, you call me and I can do that for you while you handle the crisis happening right in front of you.
Right.
And so we hope those things never happen, but we plan for them and we know how to prepare you and make sure that you have what you need in that moment.
Yeah, that's great. So what about, you hear that travel agents have access to like special deals or special perks. Like, is that a real thing? Let's talk about that.
It is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
I just feel like though it's maybe not, it maybe doesn't always work the way people imagine it does. And I also wonder if it has changed over time and that is what has caused some of the misconception. Because I think that there used to be a time where travel agents maybe had access to sale prices that the general public didn't have access to before the internet. But really it's more about having the breadth of information we have so that we maybe can see that faster for you than what you could have found it for yourself online. Mm-hmm. Just an idea. But the other thing is knowing what's coming. And then the real thing we can save you money on is group travel is a great example.
Yeah.
So putting together a group for you is going to save your group money. But the other thing that can happen, and I've had this happen with cruises, I think it happens more with cruises maybe than with other things. We have a network behind us that allows us to book clients sometimes, not always, but often into groups to get group pricing.
Yes.
Even though you're not necessarily having to hang out with the group. Like you aren't necessarily even aware that you're part of a group, but we got you group pricing because our organization, our network, whatever that we're working with has access to groups, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So if you want to explain that better than I did, that's,
like you said, because of the network, our network that we're a part of is pretty expansive. So we have, connection to a larger buying power, group power. And thankfully we're able to, take advantage of that and then pass that on to our clients.
And that's real money. I had a family this summer, they saved $2,000 on their cruise. She called me, actually, she wasn't going to work with me. We're friends outside of, this, and she knew I was a travel agent, but she had booked her own travel before. And so she was just thinking she would do that again. But when she went to book her trip, the pricing was not what she had expected. She probably, I'm kind of extrapolating from our conversation, but I think what had happened is in the past, she had booked earlier in the year. Like I mentioned, we know wave season is coming. So we would be telling people, if you're going to book a cruise, book it before the end of February. The pricing is going to be better in December, January, February than it is the rest of the year in general, with some exceptions, but in general. But she had a lot going on in life, maybe some uncertainty with their calendar, and then wasn't booking that vacation for summer until like April or May. I can't remember exactly when this was, but it was spring, solidly spring. And now the pricing wasn't where she expected it to be. And she was struggling to be able to actually confirm this. Like, I don't think I can do this. This isn't what we were budgeting. And also there weren't as many rooms available. This is another thing people don't think about, is that cruises fill up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other things do too. Hotels fill up, resorts. So especially if they're very popular, if they're everybody has the same summer vacation in America, basically, those weeks are full. And so she was struggling. So she called me just kind of out of desperation. I was like, is there any chance you could help me get a better price? And I said, let me see what I can do. And I honestly didn't know that I could, but using my system, using my network, I was shocked at the amount of money we were able to save their family and get them on a cruise that they were seeing was full. Well, there was group space available.
Right.
And I was able to put her in a group that got her a better price. And like I said, I'm not sure she even realized she was in a group, because it was really more about that pricing structure. And so their family was able to go on the vacation they had hoped to go on at the time they were hoping to go, and save a significant amount of money. So that's the kind of thing we're able to do for clients sometimes. And there's some other tricks and tips, but I would say that's the strongest one we're able to do.
Yeah. I know I had one recently where a client had a pretty strict budget, and it was kind of a anniversary trip. And one of the things that I was able to take advantage of, because on my end, the travel agent side, was some little upgrades here and there for the anniversary that would not have been probably public facing, but because I was on the travel agent side, just the little like special, chocolates on the pillow or a bottle of champagne, or, little extras that you're able to add in on our side that, she otherwise would not have been able to, access. So you just never know what little small things.
Yes. And that's a good point. And another thing is, like, the way that we are advertised to as travel agents is different than how the customer is advertised to often. Let's just some transparency. If, let's say, out of like the top 4 or 5 cruise lines, they're all sending us information, and they're sending ads to people that have cruised them or look like they're potential, right? So you might see an ad on Facebook or on, I don't know, wherever you see ads, you're going to see that stuff. If you have cruised with them before, then you're going to get email, right? Or maybe even texts that are advertising their specials and their promos. What we get is that information, right? Here's the current promotional sale that your people are seeing or that's available. But we also sometimes will get booking incentives that they are trying to tell us, like, if you get your client to book with this cruise line, our cruise line, instead of that other cruise line, then we're going to give you, the travel agent, XYZ, right? And so they'll try to convince us to book more people with them. So sometimes in that kind of messaging, they will offer our clients extra things.
Yes.
And that is when things get really exciting for me. So, and we could do a whole episode probably on like our ethics and our standards and our ways of doing things versus some of the other people out there. There are differences in how people approach these things. Some people really go for those because they want the bonuses for themselves. What I'm looking for personally is not, can I get an extra $100 out of convincing you, the client, to book with this company instead of that company. So that feels wrong to me and unethical, and also unhelpful in the long term, because I want my clients to have the best vacation. So that's not the kind of thing that motivates me personally as a travel agent. What motivates me is when they say something like, if you can book a client before the end of the month, then we are going to give your client an extra, $100 in cruise credit, like onboard credit, or, an extra, they get to dine at the nice restaurant one night or something. Like, if they can offer something that's an added value that I can take to my client and say, listen, these prices and these two options are so similar, right? But if you decide by the end of the month to book with this one instead of that one, then you're going to get this in addition. I personally would go with that, and that's because you're getting more out of it. So those are the kinds of things that sometimes we get to see that other people aren't seeing, and we can offer and pass on. And I enjoy that part. I enjoy when I get to whip that out and be like, hey, look at the thing I found that you didn't know existed.
So we are kind of at the end of our time. We're actually over our time a little.
Look at that.
I know. I think we're going to have to do a whole nother episode, like a part 2 on this, because I feel like there's a lot more stuff that we hadn't even gotten a chance to touch on, like travel insurance and group travel and that kind of stuff. So I think we will probably make those some upcoming episodes. Is there a last thing that you want to say before we wrap up? Did you have?
I want to say, if you're listening to this and you haven't used a travel agent before, or you have, but you had a bad experience, I would say we would love a chance to work with you and help you to have a better experience, to have a better vacation. We want you to have less stress and more fun. And the other thing, and we should do an episode on this, is when you imagine what it might cost to work with a travel agent, I think you'd be shocked. I think you'd be shocked that it's much more affordable than you imagine. And the value that you get out of it is so much more than whatever that fee is going to be. You're going to save time and money working with a travel agent, even with their fee added. So in the course of, for example, the family that paid, they paid to work with me when they weren't planning to, and I saved them $2,000 on their vacation. They only paid me $250 for me to save them $2,000. And then I went on to help them with other things that they weren't expecting help with. So there's a lot of value that comes in working with a travel agent. And I think you'd be really shocked at how low the fees are and how valuable it really can be. In the end, you really are saving money.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, thank you. I think that was a great episode. Our next episode is going to be on packing tips. So that's going to be a fun one. And so we're up to our final question of the episode that we ask at the end of each episode. What destination is on your mind this week? So Heather, what have you got? What destination's on your mind?
I'm dreaming of being back in France this week. European Christmas markets. That's what I'm looking forward to for next year.
That sounds awesome. I'm actually dreaming about Alaska, which is unusual for me because I usually go for the warm, but I've been looking at Alaska cruises and it looks amazing. Beautiful area. So now that you've heard where our minds are this week, we'd like to know where your mind is traveling today. You can share your answer with us on Facebook under this week's podcast question at facebook.com/travelbuggirls. You can find us on your favorite social media by using @travelbuggirls or join our VIP group. You'll find us in Facebook groups under TBG Travel Bugs or at facebook.com/groups/TBG Travel Bugs. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you